Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, did you not hear what did everybody not hear what I said just now?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
I just heard
Allah.
other people come.
We did not hear you. We just heard you.
Oh, Allah. You know what? I have been talking for the past 5 minutes, and I guess I was on mute. I'm so sorry. And again, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. So assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm so sorry, there was I guess a technical issue on my part. I was talking this whole time and I was on mute. So please forgive me for this delay. But I'd like to welcome all of you back to another primetime session that we host for you every month. MCNA, which is Muslim Children of North America, and we are under ICNA, Islamic Circle of North America. We try and bring you a new speaker, a new topic that is very relevant for our Muslim youth to make them strong leaders of today and tomorrow, to be confident in every walk of life. And sometimes we bring you topics that are relevant to your faith directly, sometimes to your public school lives. And today, inshallah, Dr. Robbins is here. He is the Executive Director of Massachusetts Chapter of CARE, which is the Council on American Islamic Relations. This is the largest Muslim advocacy and civil rights organization in the United States. In a given day, he might help a Muslim who was fired from work for wearing a hijab, and he might connect a local mayor with their Muslim constituents, and he might also give a talk about Islam at a church. So lots of things going on in his day. But before joining CARE, he taught high school algebra. He volunteered with lots of nonprofit organizations, and he also received a PhD in English. And he grew up on a farm in Maryland. So without further delay, Jazakallah khair, Dr. Robbins, for being here and being our guest speaker for today. Again, please accept my apologies for the delay, and the mic is yours.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can everyone see my screen now and hear me all right? Yes, okay, thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Thank you for having me today. It's a pleasure to speak before all of you, and inshallah, this will be a beneficial conversation. And I hope that we can devote a good chunk of the time to doing questions and answers, inshallah. So, CARE has been, obviously, for the past few years, documenting hate crimes across the country, and particularly in the last 2 years, we've been focusing much more on the situation of Muslim youth. I'm getting somebody who's saying they can't see the screen, actually, so if Sister Shema, you can try to remedy that and make sure my screen is coming up. So are people still people are still unable to see the screen? Oh, there we go. Okay. So now I'm seeing people that can see the screen. Good. If there's any issues, please just use the question box and let me know. So as I was saying, CARE has obviously been documenting more of these cases in the last few years. It's something that previously no one was really paying attention to, the situation of Muslim youth. But now we're seeing that obviously this is a much more important issue and much more priority for the Muslim community. So unfortunately, what we've seen in the last year, especially, and in the last month since the election, specifically has been an increase in hate crimes across the country. So we have people who are, posting some really virulent messaging around Muslims. They're saying, Muslims need to get out. Anti-Muslim hate crimes are on the rise. And in particular, we've seen a big jump since the election last month. It's been the worst month for anti-Muslim hate crimes on record, even worse than since September 11th, 2001, unfortunately. And so one of the issues that we've encountered especially is that Muslims are particularly targeted by this. So we've seen that Muslim Americans have been a large recipient, obviously, of this, especially if you consider that immigrants are also, often self-identifying as Muslims, or African Americans are often identifying as Muslims, minorities generally. So this is a good chunk of the incidents and the issues that we've been observing and documenting. And particularly this is, unfortunately, very often taking place within schools. We are seeing a large uptick in the number of incidents of Muslim children reporting being bullied because of their faith background, because of wearing the hijab a lot of the time, or because of the color of their skin, or because of their name or family. People who previously didn't know anything about Islam or Muslims are now associating it with a negative thing. They're saying that, Muslims are a negative influence in society, unfortunately. And this is impacting youth, especially because, as many of you know, for a lot of young people, their first interaction with Islam, even before their parents are telling them what it means to be a Muslim, is when people are saying that being a Muslim is bad, or they're getting picked on at school because of it. 2 years ago, the statistic was that 55% of Muslim youth were getting bullied, and now we're seeing that probably going up. And so, I first of all want to put this in context. I want to say that, especially speaking toward the youth on the call, you're not alone in this. That bullying has been something that in the U.S. has been an issue for every minority group. This has been an issue for African American students, for Asian students, for Latino students, for Jewish students, for Catholic students, everybody. Even now everyone thinks, oh, well, it doesn't mean much to be a white American. That's, the group that's not bullied as much. But when many Irish people first came into the U.S. in the 19th century, they were bullied hugely in school. People were picking on them and making fun of them and saying, you don't belong here. And they were making fun of their parents and where they came from. And now, just saying that you're from Ireland in the U.S. doesn't mean anything. So inshallah, this is a temporary thing that, although it is our generation's one of our struggles, one of our jihad, inshallah we'll be able to go beyond it as time goes on. So what does bullying look like? And this is, again, record number of incidents. So there are 4 primary types of bullying: physical, verbal, social, and cyber. And we're going to go through each one briefly. So first is physical. And so as this demographic indicates, this was back in 2015, 29% of hijab-wearing students experienced offensive touching or pulling of hijab. So this is obviously bullying that takes place, whether it's physical pushing, whether it's actual fights or altercations, whether it's even someone in the hallway, for example, tugging on your hijab hard and trying to maybe harass you in this way. A lot of what we get are people who aren't, bullies tend to be cowards, and bullies who tend to do things without talking to anyone or without saying, okay, I'm explicitly doing this, they just tend to sneak up on you in the hallway. And so that's obviously one kind of bullying. And it's important to recognize that, and that's the one that most people associate. Additionally, there's verbal bullying. And so verbal is just purely incidents that can talk of talking with someone. This can occur alone or in a group. And so a big difference between verbal and social will be that verbal can be just a one-on-one, someone making fun of you in this way, saying hurtful words, making hurtful statements. Social, on the other hand, is more group-based. So this often has to do with leaving people out of groups deliberately. This has to do with saying, you can't be in our project team, or we're not going to play with you outside of school, you're not invited to our birthday party, these kind of incidents. If they're on Facebook or social media, it's saying, okay, well, in real life, we're going to keep you out of this. And that bleeds over into the fourth kind of bullying, which is cyberbullying, which many probably parents will find that this is a new thing that they're thinking about, because for many of the older generation, they didn't have this kind of situation where they didn't have a lot of social media. They didn't have things like Snapchat or Instagram. And now this is an entirely new kind of bullying that the Muslim community is still really learning how to deal with. And it's important to emphasize that, again, these kind of bullyings have been going on for all communities. This is nothing specific to the Muslim community. And even in all Muslim schools, sometimes a lot we'll hear, okay, well, yes, we still have bullying. It doesn't have anything to do with being a Muslim since we're all Muslim, but we get different kinds of bullying. But the kind of bullying that we're going to focus on here is because specifically of your race or religion, because maybe you come from Pakistan or India or Egypt or India or Indonesia or somewhere. or because specifically you say I'm Muslim or you have a Muslim sounding name. So what does it look like to respond to this kind of bullying? What do you do in these kind of situations where you feel like you're being bullied, where you feel like there's a problem, or you feel like there's some issue, and you say, I'm really not feeling comfortable with this. Maybe it's that a person who had previously been nice to you turns around in class and says you need to get out. Maybe it's a person that's previously been your friend now starts hanging out with someone else, and they together tell you, we're not going to include you anymore. Or maybe you have a chemistry project and someone says, I'm not going to work with you. So there are a couple of things that we always recommend that people do. First of all, obviously, get out of the situation, especially if it's physical. So if someone is pushing you in the hallway, or someone is acting as though they're threatening you or something like this, whether it's in school or outside of school, the most important thing that you can do is to get out of that situation, to walk away, to leave, and to not try to be, some hero, to not try to be some person who gets the better of them, but to just leave the situation. Because it can, the number one priority, and the sunnah, by the way, is always to, if possible, to avoid any kind of violence, to always avoid altercations, to always, whenever it's possible, to promote peace. So the Prophet ﷺ would often, when people were mean to him, when people were even doing terrible things to him, would just say salam and walk away. And he was very, very strong in this respect and very brave to do this, because it does take a lot of bravery to remove yourself from a situation. So the number one thing to do in these situations is obviously to get out, to make sure that your safety is the priority, and especially with physical. Now the next thing is the next thing is to begin thinking about, well, who are some authority figures that I can trust? Maybe it's a teacher that you feel really understands the situation. Maybe it's your parent, and you think, they really do get and understand what's going on. For some people, maybe you even have a really good relationship with a coach or with an administrator, maybe your vice principal or your principal. And there's somebody who you feel like you can really turn to. Now, I know that's a hard thing for a lot of younger people, and when I was a high school teacher, this was something that I ran into all the time, that people didn't want to talk to a teacher. They didn't want to talk to an authority figure. But I really do have to emphasize that is a very important thing to do, that you really let your parents know what's going on, that you let a teacher, if possible, know what's going on, and that you really do find someone that you can trust in a situation where they're going to deal with it responsibly. Now, this is, obviously, again, a lot of people will dissuade you from doing that. They'll say, no, don't be a rat. That's a thing that often other students will say. So maybe in maybe just one-on-one with that teacher, go and talk to them, or maybe you just tell your parents one-on-one if you're really concerned about what other students might say to you, or you think the bullying might get worse if you talk to them. But I would definitely encourage you to talk to an adult about these issues, because I can assure you that it's definitely not going to get better if you just let it happen over and over again. It's definitely not going to get better if you keep doing the same thing about it. And those people who are really able to do something are the ones who should be informed. And so now I do want to turn to the parents for a moment. What can parents of children do during these situations? What can parents do to these to impact this? Well, one very proactive and important thing that you can do is talking with your child's teacher on a regular basis, not just when you feel like something might be wrong, but at least 4 to 5 times a year, going into parent-teacher nights and making sure that the teacher knows that you're paying attention, and making sure that you're asking, how is my student in general? How are my son and daughter interacting with other students? Not just focusing on their academics, but focusing on that social impact as well. Letting them know that you care about whether your son or daughter is making good friendships, having good relationships, is getting along well with other students, seeing if the teacher has noticed any kind of problems. The teacher may not even notice that there's a bullying issue going on, but they might have a feeling that your son or daughter is getting left out of projects, for example, and you might be able to then bring that up with your son or daughter. Another aspect that's very important is to regularly talk with your child about what's going on within their day, and to really let them know, again, that you don't just care about their academics and how well they're doing in school, but how they're feeling, how their friendships are going, how their friends are treating them, whether or not they feel that their non-Muslim friends are still treating them the same way as they did before the election, before people started saying negative things in the news, before their friends started saying, well, my dad says that Trump is going to kick you out, for example. This is a very common thing that almost every Muslim student we've heard has talked about. Talk with them about whether they're nervous or what they're feeling during these times. If they have any questions about, well, what is going to happen with us and our family. These are very important issues. Make sure, finally, that appropriate actions are taken place by teachers, who is, again, still on the slide here. Teachers have a responsibility to treat bullying toward students who are Muslim the same way that they would address bullying toward Jewish students, toward African American students, toward Latino students, toward any other student. Being a Muslim means that you have the same rights as every other American. And so I really want to emphasize that point, that even though bullying of Muslim students is a little bit different because maybe the specific things that are said are different, it's still a form of bullying, and the procedures are the same. And so that means that teachers are required under law to take a report about the incident if you ask, to take disciplinary action against the person who's doing the bullying. So at the beginning, that might mean sitting down and talking with them. If it continues, it would mean sitting down and talking with that student's parents. And if it continues beyond that, either doing a detention or a suspension. And this, again, this is all kinds of bullying. This is, physical, verbal, even cyber. Teachers have a responsibility to be monitoring this whenever it takes place within school limits. And they really do have to do this. And if you feel that your teacher is not doing this adequately, then you have a right to talk to your principal or superintendent about this. And they will assist you with taking care of the problem more fully. And if there's ever a situation in which you feel that the teacher or the administration is not taking this seriously, then we encourage you to contact your local care chapter, and we'll talk about solutions for that, because we've had very good luck approaching school districts with these kind of questions. So finally, I'd like to emphasize that it's very important truly to report this. Oftentimes, parents will say, I'm really just going to let my child get through this. This is just a growing pain. This is a natural thing. Everyone gets bullied. And this is true. A lot of students do get bullied. But when the bullying takes place because of your child's racial or religious background, that is a form of specific hatred. And that's something that we need to document. Our community is only going to be able to establish itself more fully if we're able to have very good information and say quantitatively and without a doubt, this is our situation. We are really a group that does face definite difficulties, and we need help addressing them. And so for students especially, you might say, well, maybe I'm not going to say anything because, this is something that I'm going to try to stick out on my own. Well, the downside of that can be, maybe you wouldn't have as much of a problem. Maybe you can just get through it, and maybe you can wait a few months, and maybe the students will stop. But often what we see is that it's not just you that's having that issue. That when you report these things, when you tell a teacher, when you tell your parent, what you're doing is you are letting people know that this is a real issue and that it's happening in large numbers. And so what we often get, for example, is I will have 5 or 6 parents that will tell me, from the same school, my child is being bullied in this school. Or I'll have 5 or 6 kids that will come up and say, we're really having a problem in this teacher's classroom. But when we go to talk to the superintendent, they'll say, I had no idea. Nobody reported on this. Nobody was telling us this was happening. And so they end up not doing anything. But when you report this, when you let your teacher know, when you let your local care chapter know, when you let your parents know, then this really shines a light on this problem so that other students, not just you, but other students who maybe even need the help more, will feel strong enough to come forward, and that those numbers will also be out there so that the superintendents and the administrators begin to take this more seriously and really know, hey, this is a significant, serious problem, and we need to make sure that our students are taken care of. So you're not just protecting yourself, you're protecting other students as well. And that's a very, very important thing. I think everybody will agree. Standing up not just for yourself as a Muslim, but for other Muslims as well who might be afraid during these times. And so obviously there's much, much, much more we can talk about and much more I'd like to answer. So I want to open this up for some Q&A for the next half hour or so that we have plenty of time for this. And I'm happy to address any kind of unanswered questions that we had there. That was a very brief overview. And I'd certainly love to talk to some of the younger students as well if you have questions in particular. So my understanding is that other people can't see my screen for the questions, and so feel free to type in or ask anything that you'd like, and I won't share anyone's name. I'll just share the questions.
Okay, so inshallah, go ahead, ask your questions, but the questions have to be relevant to what Dr. Robbins is talking about. So all the things that he talked about, ask him questions that are related to his topic, inshallah.
So the question, how can we prevent getting bullied by others? That's a great question. And so, you know, a lot of what I've been talking about is responding when bullying happens, but prevention is obviously very important. So there are a couple different ways. So personally and according to CARE, we feel strongly that people bully others because they don't know anything about them, because they are afraid, or because they don't know something about them. You know, you tend not to bully people who you've known for a long time. You tend to bully people who you don't know anything about. So particularly for students, you know, you can really try to let people know, hey, I am a Muslim and this is what I believe, and you can try to educate your class a little bit more. And for parents, you might consider bringing in some local imam and saying, can you do an Islam 101 class before the school? Can you do a training for the teachers about who are Muslims and what do they believe? These kind of educational things often can be extremely powerful for teachers. And I would really strongly encourage people to do that as much as possible, since I think it has a big impact. I really do. And I would strongly encourage that as a mode of prevention, not just response. And so another question that I've gotten is, what do you do when there is cyberbullying? Which is a great question, obviously, and very important. So cyberbullying is a little bit tricky because it can take place in two different ways. It can take place in school and on school premises and during school hours, or it can take place outside of school. So when it takes place inside of school, obviously all the same things still apply. You talk to a teacher, you talk to your principal, those kind of issues. When it takes place outside of school, that tends to get a little bit harder, primarily because, you know, the teachers there would say, well, that didn't take place with us. That's like if you were playing a game of soccer and someone pushed you on the field. You wouldn't talk to a teacher, you talk to a coach. So a similar thing would be, in that case, talking to a parent and really letting your parents know what's going on. And parents, as much as possible, making sure that you know what's going on within your children's social media life, that you're talking with them about who their friends are there and what kind of things they're saying. And it may involve you getting in touch with another parent and saying, hey, did you know that your son or daughter has been saying these things to my son or daughter? You know, those can be very meaningful. And I leave it up to each individual parent's discretion how much they want to monitor their children's social media, how much they want to put parental security on them, that kind of thing. So, you know, obviously that goes up to each parent and Allahu Alam. What do you do if you're shy about your religion? So, you know, obviously, you know, everybody is shy, and that's completely understandable when it comes to these things. You don't have to go shouting on the hilltops everywhere, I am a Muslim. But we also don't have to be shy about describing why we're doing certain things. For example, if someone asks you why you're not eating during Ramadan, you don't have to, you know, we certainly wouldn't want anyone to lie. What we want you to do is proudly say, it's because I'm a Muslim, and it's because it's Ramadan, and Ramadan is our most holy month of the year. We believe it's this wonderful time of blessings, and let me tell you about it. And that can be a real opportunity to share to this beautiful thing in your life with some people. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to just go yelling about Islam everywhere. That's obviously not what anybody's talking about. But it means not backing away when somebody asks you, why do you need to go step out of class? Oh, I need to go pray Zuhr. Why are you heading out of school on Friday afternoons? Well, it's because I have Jum'ah. I get to see all of my friends. I get to hear a great message. I get to learn more about God. And I think that's, a very powerful thing that you can say to people. And it's even something that shy people can do. I've got a question, how common is bullying? So, as we said, CARE 2 years ago did a study in California, and they found that 55% of Muslim students reported being bullied. That's over twice the national average of 25%. And as any parent and young person knows, a lot of young people don't report when they have bullying going on. And so we're guessing the numbers are even higher. Since the election, I've talked to a lot of Muslim students, and probably 75% have said that they've felt some kind of bullying since the election. So you're not in this alone. It's many, many, many Muslim students are going through this. And it's one of the challenges of our time. And inshallah, we ask for Allah's strength and guidance during it. What would Trump do to us? I have from one of our younger individuals. You know, I can tell you that all that our organization does and what we focus on is making sure that American Muslims are safe. It's making sure that we are safe when we pray, that we're safe when we work, that we're safe when we travel, and that we're safe at school. And so I can tell you that no matter what goes on, or no matter who's the president, we are all still Americans, and we all still have rights as Americans and as citizens. And so we're going to stand up for those, for you, and for each other person who's in here. And so even though some things have changed, in some ways nothing has changed. We still have a constitution, we still have rights, and you still have a right to a safe school. And especially the teachers that I've talked to have been very, very committed to that. And so, you know, obviously we want to make sure that we're addressing the challenges as they come up, but I don't think that this is a time where we need to be, you know, overly afraid. And I think that the priority for young people especially is to value your education and to make sure that you're focusing on that. What did the numbers on the map represent? Those were just random numbers on the map. That was just a map that showed some data. It was the best one that I could find. What if you were in an Islamic school and you faced bullying there? That's an excellent question. So a lot of those similar things that I've brought up still apply. So for example, we'll talk to students in Islamic schools sometimes and they'll say, yes, I get bullied, but everybody's Muslim, so it's not just because I'm a Muslim, it's just because I have this other issue. So I would still encourage you to do the same things. Talk to your parents, talk to your teacher or principal, and let them know what's going on. And inshallah, especially because everyone is going to share your same values as in an Islamic school, then inshallah it will be more easily resolved. And I would hope that it would be even better than at a non-Islamic school. Should we stand up to the bully or just leave? This is another question that I'm seeing, which is an excellent question. So again, really the priority for these situations is to get out of the situation. Especially if you feel like it might become a physical situation, you should always definitely just try to get out of the situation. If it means, you know, walking away, if it means just leaving, if it means, you know, whatever it might mean for you. If you're on the phone, it might mean hanging up the phone even. But the real priority is just to get out of that situation. Even when it comes to verbal bullying, if somebody is saying something negative toward you, you really can just kind of stop talking with that person. You can let them know, hey, that's not how I like to be talked to, and stop talking. And that can be a very powerful thing to make people realize, oh, it's not really funny. I'm not just joking around with this person. I'm actually hurting them. And that can be a good way to make them stop that. So, you know, obviously that's a powerful thing to do. And then once that's done, once you're out of that difficult situation, then you can talk to an adult about it. In my school hallway, someone yelled Allahu Akbar. I found it offensive, but I don't know what to do. That's a good question. So, for example, when someone does anonymous bullying, you know, you don't know who it was. Maybe they just said it in a crowd. You know, these people are cowards, and they are, you know, they don't really know what Islam is. They don't know what these things mean. They often are just repeating things that they hear their parents say, or they saw on TV, or they saw online. So, you know, in those kind of situations where you can't really, you know, that would probably be good. Let them know that it took place. Maybe they have a better sense of who it was. Maybe they know that they overheard a student saying something about it. But, you know, I think it's better to try to ignore that and know that not to take it too personally. If it comes up again, obviously, generally, you know, maybe just not saying they're leaving you out of something, but leaving you out of something. For example, saying, "Oh yeah, let's meet at my locker between classes," and then not going there. or saying, oh yeah, let's meet here after school, and then not meeting you there. These kind of things that are very hard to prove or difficult to really be particular about. You know, if it's someone who's a friend or had been a friend doing this to you, and you feel like you can tell them, hey, this is hurting my feelings, you need to stop doing this. And if they really do continue doing this kind of behavior, then you can tell them, well, we're not just going to be friends anymore until you stop this, until you start treating me better again. If it's a person who you don't consider a friend, then you would consider that bullying and report it to a teacher or a parent in the same way as we were talking about before. But if you really feel like you're being bullied, then you are being bullied. You know, that is the proof. And when we talk about those kinds of proof, then I would definitely encourage you to, you know, say, well, even if somebody says something or makes you feel like you're out of place or makes you feel like you're not welcome, that is a form of bullying and it should be taken seriously. And that goes into the next question as well. What if your close friend starts bullying you? That person's no longer your friend then. You know, if it makes you feel bad, it's not fun. It's not a person playing with you. It's not a person just messing around with you. You are a valuable person. You have real worth in this world. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places your value incredibly highly. And you don't need to hang around people who are going to make you feel bad about yourself. You're better than that. How can you nicely respond to bullying in public? I think that's a great question. So if you simply smile, turn around, and walk away, that can be a very powerful thing. If you say something positive and then leave, that can also be a very positive thing. What you don't want to do is become a bully yourself, where you're then making fun of those other students, where you're then laughing at someone or picking on them or making them feel badly about themselves too. The Prophet ﷺ tells us to repel, or the Quran, I'm sorry, tells us to repel evil with that which is better. And the Prophet ﷺ, even when people were mean to him, even when people were angry with him, even when people made fun of him, his response to was to reply peace. And this was the true mark of a Muslim, and I would say it still is. What do you do if someone tries to pull off your hijab? Unfortunately, this is something that we've been seeing a lot of lately. Particularly with young women who wear hijab, this is a big problem. So this is a form of assault. This is no different than if they were hitting you or slapping you or treating you negatively in any other way, physically. And you need to take that very, very seriously and respond in any other way that you can. Again, the priority is getting out of that situation and then immediately telling a parent or a teacher about who did it and why. And for parents out there, if your child does experience this, this is, again, a form of assault. This is a very serious form of a hate crime. And please contact your local care office immediately, and we can help talk you through dealing with those hate crimes. And for anyone who doesn't know, you can find your local care office by going to care.com, CAIR.com. How do you make someone see that Muslims are good? So again, this goes into the proactive measures. This is letting people know in advance the kind of work that Muslims really do, and letting them know that you're not ashamed of who you are as a Muslim, and that it's part of why you do a good thing as a person. The greatest testimony, the greatest shahada that we can give as Muslims is being bearers of good in this world. And the more that you're kind to your classmates, the more that you help others, the more that you take care of people who, you know, are even getting bullied themselves, the more that you show that you are going to be a generous person who is going to help out another poor student, for example, or another student who needs help with their homework, or another student who needs help studying for an essay. That is very good witness, and that is, above all, beautiful in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and a wonderful witness of who the Muslims really are. That they're not just the people that you hear about on TV, but that you're actually a good person next to them. What do I do if my teacher bullies me? This is a very serious question as well. When CARE did that study out in California and they found that 55% of Muslim American students were being bullied, they found that 20% of that bullying, 1 in 5, was being done by adults. So that was either teachers or coaches or maybe parents of other students. So for example, when a parent comes to pick up their student from school, then they are making fun of a Muslim student. So during these situations, if you feel like your teacher is the one making fun of you, then you should bring it up with the principal. Maybe your teacher is saying things in class that you really don't agree with. Maybe your teacher is laughing at you in front of the other students. This is really a very negative thing. You should let your parents know immediately, and definitely have, and parents definitely should talk with the principal. And students as well, you should talk with the principal in this circumstance and encourage them to take action immediately. And that might result in disciplinary action against the teacher. It should certainly result in the teacher having to apologize. And even down the line, depending on the severity, it could result in the teacher being suspended or fired, because again, this is a very, very serious issue. What if you don't have proof a particular person is bullying you and the teacher doesn't believe you because you're a Muslim? So again, this is a good but a hard question. So in this particular circumstance, again, it's very uncommon to have proof of bullying. Typically there's not video. Typically, unless it's cyberbullying where there's really evidence there, if somebody just says something to you or pushes you, then there's no proof of that afterward. Maybe you have other witnesses. Maybe that would be proof. But if it's purely just these kind of things that have happened, then it's a little bit more challenging. So again, if you're bringing it up to your teacher and they don't believe you for a variety of reasons, maybe it's because you're a Muslim or maybe not, we don't know, Allahu Alam. But if the teacher doesn't seem to believe you and you really feel like this is a serious issue, then you should definitely be talking about it with your parents and with your principal. And parents, if the principal doesn't seem responsive either, then you can talk to the superintendent. You can keep going right up. And contacting your local care chapter at that point is also a good thing to do because they can help you to walk through some of those steps. But really not just saying, okay, if that person didn't believe me or didn't do anything, I'm going to stop. No, making sure that you say, no, my safety, my security, and my educational well-being is a priority. And that's really what I'm going to value. What would you reply if someone came up to you with only background information from the news about your religion and made a racist comment about it? Yeah, most people are not, most of the people who are making fun of Muslims are not scholars. They are not people who have a PhD in religion. They're not people who have been Muslims their whole lives. These are people who don't know anything about Islam. They only know something they heard about on the news or heard from their parents or heard some racist uncle say. These are not, people who are very well educated or well informed. And so, if this is someone you know and they make a comment and maybe you have to judge yourself, do you think they're saying it just to be mean and just to hurt you? If so, then it's not really about the truth, it's just about hurting your feelings. And so the best circumstance in that situation is just to walk away, just to tell them, leave me alone or something like that, and then tell the teacher. If it's someone you know and they really, maybe, a lot of things that we get are people who genuinely don't know. They say, wow, is it true that Islam says this? And for you and I, it might seem hurtful, but if it's a friend or someone you know and you really feel they have a good intention, you can explain to them what's going on. So you are the best judge of that situation, if it's a friend or if it's someone who maybe is not going to be convinced. And that's the same for the next question if someone's calling you a terrorist, which obviously we hear a lot of, and that's a very hurtful thing for a Muslim to be called, because we all know the beauty of our deen, we all know the beauty of our religion, and it's hurtful when someone says negative things about it, or negative things about us because of it. So that falls into the same protocol as before. So this is a very good question. What if you're too scared to tell your teacher because the bully will bully you more or will lie about it? So this is a hard challenge, and this is something that when I was a teacher that I had to deal with very, very delicately. So teachers are trained of how to deal with bullying, and we think that they need to be trained more, but they are trained with how to deal with it. They are trained not just to say, hey, you, stop bullying Muhammad over here, and then to leave it at that. They are trained to make sure that the two of you are not in the same groups anymore, that that student is facing adequate disciplinary action, that they know, hey, if I do this again, I'm going to get in a lot of trouble for it, that the teacher is taking paying extra attention to that other student and where he's interacting with you, and making sure that they're really letting them know, hey, this is not going to stand. I'm not going to tolerate this. And finally, that the teacher has an honest conversation with them about why this is bad, not just telling them you shouldn't do that, but saying, this is really hurtful to this person because this is their religion. It's a part of who they are. It's a part of their identity. And you wouldn't like it if someone did that to you. And this is just making you seem like a smaller person because you're doing it. So hopefully that teacher can do it in a positive way, and if you don't feel like they are, then this would be something to bring up with your principal who should be better trained. And that's a very good question. And so I have someone saying that they still, even after talking with the teacher, the other students are still making fun of them and calling them this. This is a good thing to be telling your parents about, because teachers will sometimes not do enough to address bullying. They'll just have a talk with that student. They'll say, oh, you shouldn't say this anymore, or I don't want to hear you say that anymore. And so it'll continue. The bullying will keep going at that point. But it's important to remember that teachers really do need to be very, very clear with that student about the steps for disciplinary action. So first of all, yeah, the teacher will talk to them and say, I don't want to see that anymore. And if it continues and you tell the teacher about it again, then the teacher should have meetings with that child's parents, letting them know, did you know your child made a racist remark? And most parents will respond very negatively about that. They'll really be angry at their child, and that will help to make a case. And I did this all the time when I was a teacher. Maybe they bring in your parents and the bully's parents, and everybody has an honest conversation about this of moving forward. And finally, if the student really doesn't stop, then the teacher should be giving them detentions or suspensions even, that they should be referred to a certain counseling service in some cases. And if your teacher's not following these steps, then again, that's something to bring up with your principal or even your superintendent if need be. And certainly your care chapter. You should always let your care chapter know about each one of these incidents so that we can get accurate numbers. What happens if somebody is continually asking why you're wearing hijab? So that would be a question that you'd have to judge. Is it somebody who genuinely wants to know? And maybe they really do want to know why do you wear that, and in that case you should tell them. You should explain this is about my modesty, and this is why I'm muhajabeh. And if it's not, if you think that they're just trying to make fun of you about it, then again, this is a form of bullying. It's a form of verbal bullying at that point. They're harassing you. It's no different than calling you another name, and you should let the teacher know about it. And maybe even your teacher at that point would let you or your parent come in front of the class and talk about why you wear hijab and educate the students, and you can use it as a way to share your Islam. Why are Muslims targets of getting bullied? That's a very good question. Every new minority group in the country always receives this. When Catholics first started coming to the U.S., they got bullied. When African Americans were coming to the U.S. more, they got bullied. When Mexican Americans started coming to the U.S. more, they got bullied. This is nothing new, and unfortunately we are just the newest version of this. Will all adults understand? Maybe not. This is a very good question. Some adults certainly don't. Some adults even do the bullying. So it's important that you decide, okay, who is a teacher that I know and I trust? Who is a parent that I know and I trust? And that I can really, feel like I can have an honest conversation with. I think everybody, if they really thinks about it, knows one teacher or maybe one coach that they really trust to talk about these kinds of things with, and that even if they're not a Muslim, they can really understand and appreciate what's going on. And so I would encourage you to turn to them. Even maybe it didn't happen in their class, but there's still someone you say, this is a person who I really think I can talk to. So I think that's really good. What happens if somebody starts bothering you and you don't think your parents will help very much? So this is a challenging thing, obviously. If you don't think your parents will help very much, still bring it up to them. Your parents love you and your parents care about you. They want to make sure that you're having a good, safe environment. And maybe sometimes they don't know the best way to help. Maybe they didn't go to school here. Maybe they simply didn't deal with these situations when they were in school here. So at that point, if your parents are really unsure, then you can call care, and we'll walk you through some of the options of what these steps might look like, just like we're doing right now. Let me skip down a little bit to make sure we get some of the later questions as well. How do I react when I hear other people bully other Muslims when I'm not involved in the situation? What if I'm scared to confront the bully, or should I? So certainly, if you're seeing your Muslim brothers and sisters getting bullied, you want to make sure that you're letting them know the things that you've heard here. That you're saying, hey, let's go, maybe I can be a friend to you and we can go talk to the teacher together, and I can tell that teacher or parent what I saw too. And letting you be a witness and a friend toward them, that's something that's very, very valuable. It might not make sense to intervene in that moment and really, potentially risk making the situation even worse, but certainly you want to help them say, okay, you know what, I'm here, I believe you, I believe in you, and I'm your friend during all this. Being a good friend can mean an awful, awful lot. Even if it just means when somebody is being bullied or somebody is being mean to them, going up and standing next to them. That can be very powerful as well. Even just talking with them during those times and getting them out of that situation and saying, hey, let's go over here. That can mean an awful lot to them. And so that's actually the best, because it never feels so bad when you have a friend during these kind of times. And it's always very helpful to somebody who's getting bullied to have somebody that they know they can rely on to support them. If you're bullied outside of school, what should we do? That's something that your parent would be in a better position to handle. So if it's, for example, at a sporting event with a coach or a school-related thing, then the same rules still apply. If it's among friends outside of school, then you would need to talk with your parents and have your parents talk with those other people's parents at that point. That wouldn't be a matter that would necessarily fall under school bullying. This person's afraid to tell their friends their religion. What should they do? I would really encourage you, if you don't feel like you can tell your friends about your religion, you would really want to ask, are these the kind of friends I want to have? Because you really are a valuable person, and your friendships make a big difference to you, and they have a big impact on your life. And so you want to make sure that you're not calling somebody your friend that you can't share this most important thing about your life with. If you can't tell somebody your religion, then you really want to ask if they're your friend. What if a teacher bullies you? I think I talked about that. Pulling off hijab, I think I talked about as well. What if somebody doesn't defend, or what if somebody feels like another Muslim needs defending? So, again, obviously, you want to, the best way that you can defend them is by helping them get out of that situation. So by saying, hey, why don't we talk over here, or hey, let's go to this class now, or hey, let's go to this other thing, and just getting them out of that situation, giving them a way to get out of that. That would be the most important, most powerful thing that you can do. Actually, this is a good question. Wouldn't answering the bully with a poker face or hiding your emotions be the best, considering the bullies look especially for a reaction out of you? So that's basically what I've been saying throughout, that you don't give that, you don't get drawn into a back and forth. You don't try to go back and forth and say, yeah, but what about you, or something like that. You just try to say, leave me alone, or something like that, and then you leave. You get out of that situation. You really don't feed them with your anger or your anything. You don't let them know that they're making that kind of impact. And then after that, you can go tell an adult. What if someone bullies you and your friends don't back you up? So again, you'll have to ask yourself, what are the specifics of that situation? But if they should be your friends and they're not supporting you, then you may need to say, well, look, guys, that was hurtful. I need you to be there for me. And if you don't feel like you can be honest with your friends, then you'll want to say, maybe I need to look for some new friends. If someone made a bad comment, is it okay to say something like, okay, thank you, the comment made my day, even though the person wasn't happy about it? So again, that would be the kind of situational, that would be very specific for what kind of situation you find yourself in, and whether you know the person well, or what kind of circumstances occurred in. How do you make a bully see what you feel? That's a very good question as well. Bullies tend to not be all that interested in being empathetic with you in that moment, and I don't know that in that moment you can really even make somebody see the different thing. I've dealt with a lot of bullies over the years in classroom settings, and I find that in that moment where they're trying to get a rise out of you, trying to make you feel bad, that there's nothing you can say that's going to make them change their mind. So that's why I always encourage people to get out of the situation. What can be done later is if, for example, you're able to get your parent to lead a discussion in class about who are Muslims and what they believe, and why this kind of bullying is so painful or harmful, or get your teacher to sit down with their parents and describe to them, what that person said, and really help the parents to see that what the student said was harmful and hurtful. Those kind of things can have an impact down the line, but in the moment it's very hard to get anybody to see. What if the teacher is racist and the parents talk to the staff, but the teacher lies in front of everyone? So that's obviously a bigger point and a bigger question. At that point, you would want to have other people in your classroom who could also talk about that and validate your point, so that it's not just you coming across there. But certainly talking to your principal at that point and continuing that dialogue, and maybe even having your parents request you to be put in a different classroom. That would probably be a reasonable one. What about when Muslim adults are being bullied or bullies? So in this situation, we want to make sure that you're talking enough with your parents and letting them know about the situation so that they can keep you away from that Muslim adult. Maybe if it's someone that you're seeing in Sunday school that you have at the masjid, then you would want to maybe have your parents talk to the imam about it, or talk to the youth director. These people could maybe have a conversation with that person. So at that point, you would start bringing in your imam and or your mufti, and they could do a little bit more of a conversation. Let me just See, I can get through maybe one or two more, I think. What if friends want to start a discussion about Islam and start making fun of it? What do you do? Well, if they're truly your friends and you feel like you can have an honest conversation, then you can say, hey, this is the real truth about my religion, and you can actually use it as a chance to educate them. And if they really start making fun of it, the most important thing to do is not feel embarrassed, because you have nothing to be embarrassed about. They're the ones who don't know anything. They're the ones who are unfamiliar with your religion, and they're the ones who don't know how wonderful and beautiful your Islam is. So it shouldn't be up to you to feel shy or embarrassed about it. They're the ones who are not saying the right things about the deen and about the faith. So making sure that you're saying, you know what, I'm proud of my faith, I love my religion, I love my prophet, and I am not afraid to say it and talk about it. That can be very powerful for people. What do you do if a bully bullies you in private and threatens if he or she finds out about you, that you told on him or her? So again, this is a very good question, but in this situation, it's about finding someone whom you can trust. Really, an adult that you know is not just going to, run right after the bully and say, hey, I heard you were making fun of Selma or something like this. But somebody who you can tell, hey, I'm afraid because this person told me that they were going to do something to me if I told anybody. And then that adult can help you work through some of those situations as well. Again, teachers are trained in this, and it's just about making sure that they apply that training equally to Muslims as they would with Jewish or Catholic or Hispanic or any other students. And maybe one more question real quick. What do you do if a teacher makes fun of you that you're being a tattletale or something like that? So that's a very good question. We want to make sure that we can, that we're being proactive and that we're being smart about that. And obviously, if the teacher starts making fun of you directly, and if the teacher or the coach or anyone like that is doing the bullying, then you want to make sure that you take it to their boss, the principal, and always bring in your parents. And so again, it's very important to be talking about this with adults and authority figures. It's very important to let them know what you're feeling and let them know what's going on. And parents and adults, I hope I've given you a little bit of ammunition as well. So in closing, just again, there are a lot of points here. I encourage all of you to get in touch with your local CARE chapter to learn more. Maybe you can have them do a presentation on Islam at your local school. I'm out here in CARE, Massachusetts, but we have 33 chapters across the country. To learn more, you can go to www.cair.com, Council on American Islamic Relations, and we have some anti-bullying resources on the website as well. And I would encourage you to look up your local chapter, and they can do more even with you if possible. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we pray for strength and guidance during these difficult times. We pray that you may protect our children from all forms of abuse that they may endure because they are Muslim. We pray that you may teach us to grow up in righteousness, that you may help parents to raise righteous children and youth to grow up righteous in the deen. Allahumma ikfir lil muslimina wal mu'minat wal muslimat. Allahumma ikfir lil muslimina wal muslimat wal mu'minina wal mu'minat al-ahyi minhum wal amwat innaka sami'un qareebun mujib ad-da'wat. Ameen.
Ameen. Jazakallah khair, Dr. Robbins. Jazakallah khair. I didn't realize that the kids had so many concerns, so please, students, attendees, definitely, as Dr. Robbins said, go talk to your teachers if you trust them, you have a good relationship with them, but definitely talk to your parents. And then if, as some of you said, if your parents are not able to help you directly, then let them know about CAIR, C-A-I-R. So definitely these are the things that, again, Dr. Robbins talked about, that you need to make sure that you're getting educated in a good, healthy environment, inshallah. So again, Jazakallah khair, Dr. Robbins, for giving us your time. Very precious advice, very precious information. And then attendees, if you have further questions, you can always email us at MCNA. MCNA for us at gmail.com, and just even reply to the email address is in the email that was sent out to you. It's mcna@icna.us. It's also in the email that was sent out with the flyer to all of you. So Jazakallah khair. For all of you being here, inshallah, we will come back next month with another awesome topic, with another awesome speaker, and to give you tools to be confident and leaders of today and tomorrow. So Jazakallah khair, everyone. Jazakallah khair, Dr. Robbins. It was a pleasure. Jazakallah khair.